Welcome back to Talking Guitar, brought to you by the Carter Vintage Exchange and the North American Guitar in Nashville, Tennessee. Lindsay here, and this week I am joined by the legend herself, Kim Sherman, to connect with one of her favorite luthiers, J.C. Baxendale of Colorado. When it comes to traditional Martin-style guitars, John builds some of the best, taking those old pre-war style building techniques and updating them with his own careful and exquisite flair. Kim has been an avid supporter of his work since the pre-TNAG Cotton days, so we chat about their longtime partnership and of course dig into what inspires him and what he's got planned for guitar number 100. Now please enjoy our conversation with John of J.C. Baxendale Guitars.
Me and Kim have been working together quite a while. I don't even know when we started, really. It's been at least 10 years, right, Kim?
At least. Yeah, I would say so. It was right after we moved into the new location.
Doesn't seem that long.
No, it doesn't. Really. Yeah. Seems like yesterday.
How long had you been building at that point?
I've been building guitars since like 2002. I kind of started right after 9/11, but I was mostly doing repair work the first like 8 years I did it. And so I only made like one guitar a year. And then I started my own shop in 2009, and I was building about 3 or 4 guitars a year. And it wasn't until I moved down here to Durango that I was like really started focusing on that. And I'm up to over 100 now. So yeah, I'm building about 10 or 12 a year.
Gotcha. Okay.
So have you spec'd number 100 yet?
I haven't. I'm waiting to find the right piece of wood and waiting to really have the time to sit down and really focus on it. And I think I want to do
let us sell it.
What's that?
I hope you'll let us find a home for it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I told you it was yours, so you can do.
That's awesome.
Send it to you.
I can't wait to see what you choose.
Yeah, me too. I started out as a little different than I think most guitar makers in that I really didn't know anything about guitars when I started, and I didn't really have any interest in it. And the thing was my dad was a guitar maker, and I started working with him right out of high school. We had a shop on East Colfax in Denver that he started in 1998, and I kind of through high school I kind of helped him build some tables and get the shop ready. And after high school, he asked me to come work for him, and I accepted that, and really didn't have the knowledge of guitars at all. Like I didn't know, I couldn't tell the difference between an Ibanez and a pre-war Martin at that point. In fact, I probably would have thought the shiny Ibanez was a better guitar, so in 2009, I decided to kind of do something different. I actually went over to Michael Bashkin. I called him. I was like, "Hey, Michael, are you hiring?" He's like, "No, I'm not hiring, but you should come down to the shop sometime and talk to me." And he was a big influence on me in that he was like, "You know what? You should just start your own thing. Like, there's so many guitars out there, and if you're good at repairing them, you'll be able to make a living at it anywhere." And so I kind of took that advice and made a business plan and hooked up with a customer of mine named Greg Worth. He helped me financially to open this shop in Littleton, Colorado, which is south of Denver. I had that for 6 years, and I was so busy. I was just totally consuming my life, the amount of repair work I was doing. I was working 7 days a week and pretty much 7 days a week. Occasionally I get a day off, but it was consuming me. I had this opportunity to move down here to Durango, and it was kind of one of those crossroad decisions. Like if I say no, I stay here and I continue to like work my ass off and do just repair after repair after repair, or I can move down to Durango and focus on guitar building. And I took that route, and I'm down here doing that. It was a good decision. I think it was tough for sure, but
grateful. We're grateful you took that route.
Yeah, me too. I learned a lot from my dad. I gotta give him that, and I'll always be grateful for that. And he really taught me the difference between a good guitar and a great guitar. He started out working for Mossman Guitars. You're
Yeah.
familiar with Mossman, right, Kim?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so that was down in Winfield, Kansas. That's where my mom's from. He worked there for a couple of years, and then he moved to Nashville and worked for Gruen's for a couple of years. I don't know if you knew that or not, but
I did. Yeah.
And that's kind of where he gained his knowledge on vintage instruments and pre-war Martins and Gibsons and all that.
I remember seeing your dad's name on the labels from the Mossmans.
Yeah, I think they're just initials, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Initials. There were just so many that were in there, and I knew Scott worked there.
The factory actually burned down in 1976, I believe. Stuart Mossman tried to rebuild it. He did. Yeah. He like got new machines and a new shop, but it was just never the same. He only had a few employees, and it just never like got back up to where it was. So he kind of like went under. My dad actually ended up buying the company from Stuart Mossman. He moved it to Texas, to Oak Cliff, Texas. And he basically was building those Mossmans by himself. I think he had one other guy working for him. And in 3 years, he built about 250 guitars.
I think we had one of those guitars at Cotton years ago. I mean,
one of my dad's.
That I remember calling because your father had taken over or had purchased Mossman, and I ended up speaking with him about something. I remember that now. Did you start doing repair for our friend Craig? Is that what you did for him first? He's the reason we were fortunate enough to meet you.
I'm trying to remember what I did originally for him. I can't remember which guitar it was specifically, but it was a repair he brought in, and he was having some fret issues that he took to someone else that they couldn't fix, and he brought it to me, and we kind of developed a relationship, and he would bring me tons of guitars after that.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and I mean, I'm really grateful to Craig too. He's been in my life for several years now, but he's the reason we knew of you, because he came and said,
exactly.
Yeah. And
I remember the conversation we had. He said, I have these friends in Nashville, and they have this wonderful little shop, and I think they'd be interested in carrying one of your guitars.
Yeah, and here we are. I was telling Lindsay the other day that, I sometimes feel that we've made you a well-kept secret in this area, just because people buy one of your guitars and then they want to order another one and another one. And don't end up with anything on the selling floor. I mean, my former business partner has 6 of your guitars, and our good friend Kevin, I think he has 5, and so there's a large concentration of guitars right here. So.
And that's pretty common with a lot of my customers, is they have multiple guitars of mine, which is kind of hard in a way, because it'd be almost better if like they were out there in the world, but it feels good when someone orders one and then they're like, this guitar blows me away. I'm selling all my other ones. I'm going to buy another one. And it's kind of what keeps me going and keeps me wanting to make them.
I can appreciate that. That's fabulous. I mean, I hope we can order more of your instruments and get them out, to more people, and not just the folks that know about you and keep snapping them all up. So
that's okay. I mean, it's however I can make a living at it. It works for me. So back to like my dad years, we had, I don't know if have you ever been to Denver, Kim?
I have.
You have? Have you been to the Bluebird Theater?
I don't think so.
No. Well, our shop was right across the street from it. It's like a really cool music venue.
Okay.
And so we had to get like touring bands in there like every weekend, and so we did a lot of repair work for some cool bands, traveling musicians, and and a lot of people don't know this about me, that I actually worked on tons of electric guitars, and like I really like electric guitars and I like playing them. So I have a lot of broad experience in all guitar related.
So you went back to that shiny Ibanez, huh?
Yeah.
So what did you like in electrics? Did you Did you go to
I just
the,
like how they sound. I love just being able to like plug one in and crank it up, and it's like a really good like stress relief to just play them, loud. And if you get that right, like pre CBS Strat or Telly, and the right amp is just like
Magic?
sounds so awesome.
I'm kind of dabbling in electric a little bit myself right now, and I'm drawn to
Cool.
the ones that are really alive acoustically. Do you feel that's important, or does that matter when you plug it in?
I think it does a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it definitely like colors the tone some. I think it's hard to say. I'm kind of out of that loop. I haven't done much electric work in probably 8 years, so sound is something that's easily forgettable. I don't know if you've experienced that or not.
What do you mean?
Well, like if I make a guitar and I'm like, oh, this guitar sounds great, and then I send it somewhere, and then 2 years later it comes back. I mean, it sounds different because it maybe changed over time.
Sure.
But it's really hard to kind of remember what it sounded like before.
That's fair. Yeah.
I think the mind.
I can appreciate that. It's hard for us too. I mean, we see so many and hear so many great guitars, and the customer will ask you a few years later, how does it compare to mine? And you're like, you remember it sort of, but it's impossible to remember fully unless you have it there. And they do
totally
change. Do you have a particular model that you like to build more than others? Do you like the dreadnoughts or the small bodies? Or
Well, my taste is kind of always evolving.
Yeah.
But I'm very partial to the 12 fret guitars.
Mm-hmm.
I was always like inspired by guitars made in the 1800s, especially by Martin. I think those were some of the best guitars ever made, were the Martins from like the mid to late 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
Just the workmanship on them is just amazing. I take a lot of inspiration off of those into my guitars. I'm not necessarily just focused on the pre-war 30s Martins,
Mm-hmm.
but I put some aesthetic things from those 1800s Martins into my designs. So I think the 12 fret triple O is probably my favorite guitar that I make.
I'll tell you that one we've heard a couple of them that were just incredible. I mean, I still remember the sound of those for sure.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to get them back after a while and hear how they change. And that's kind of one thing I don't experience a lot, because as soon as I make it, I kind of send it out and
you release it. It's gone.
So I was kind of interested. You told me yesterday about the guitar you're going to send back to me. So I'm kind of excited to just see what it's done. And
yeah, it's great. It's a fabulous guitar. One of my favorite ones that I've had the privilege of hearing is the one you made for Andrew, the Madagascar.
Oh yeah.
That was a 00.
It was a 00, 12 fret 00.
It was. It's still amazing, and I mean, it just gets better and better. They all do, but I'm particularly fond of that one. And I'm not even really one to go for pearl, but that was an understated. I think it was like a 40 style.
What do they call it? The D or the 0040, right?
Yeah, the 40 style, and it's so elegant, and it's a little powerhouse. It sounds like a dreadnought in a 00, but
awesome.
It's superb. So. And the guitar you just sent us, the newest one, that's a fabulous guitar too. Lightweight, explosive, and it's still brand new. So I can't wait for it.
I really love Madagascar Rosewood. I think it can be just as good as a lot of the Brazilian out there. And it's kind of funny. I've been building mostly dreadnoughts, seems like lately, but it's kind of like changes over the years,
I've got some 00s for you now to build.
Yeah, good.
Get those in the queue. Can't wait. If you were to make a guitar for yourself today, what woods? Would it be a 00 12 fret? What woods?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually made one for myself at one time. It was a piece of, not a very good piece of Brazilian, but it was Brazilian rosewood and Adirondack top. And that was a long time. That was when I was still in Littleton. But there always seems to come a time where I need the money, and I ended up selling it. And but someday I'll make another one. But I'm kind of enjoying the 14 fret guitars too. Like I really like the 14 fret 00s is one of my favorites. And again, I'm kind of like enjoying the dreadnoughts. I think it's been fun. I'm getting better at making them. It's a different animal really, and you kind of have to take a little different approach to the construction of them, I think, or you can make them a little muddy sounding if you build them exactly the same way as the small body guitars.
So is it with the bracing that how do you when you say you have to be careful, I mean, it's larger, so there's more.
Yeah, there's more surface there that's requires a little more stiffness, I think. So I tend to stiffen the tops a little bit.
I'll tell you the last two we've gotten, I mean, I say that every time though, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
can see that they're just better and better and better every time.
the one we sent to Glenn, I think, is one of my favorites I've made so far. This guitar really was alive, it seemed like.
Yeah. Yeah, that
He's
was
so happy.
beautiful.
Did you see it, Lindsay?
Mhm. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, just like so lively and so effortless. Like just was like ready to play.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's exceptional. And I really like the satin finish that you do.
Yeah. I'm
My favorite.
doing more and more of those.
I just think it's elegant. I love it.
It's easier to do. I mean, it's just like right off the gun, so that's makes my job easier.
Oh, that's good.
You kind of miss that whole like wet sanding and buffing part of it.
Yeah.
Finish work has always been like my least favorite part of the process. Yeah, it's definitely just a nasty process.
Yeah.
Yeah, we work with a lot of luthiers who, have someone else do their finishes.
I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
Is the reason why satin finishes are so much thinner is because you're not having to do that process of buffing and
Yeah, you have to like if you have to do that process of wet sanding and buffing, you have to build it up a little thicker. Or like if you start going through the finish and you buff it out, it just turns into a mess. You have to, respray it, or you can definitely get a lot thinner, I think, with the satin finish.
I see.
I think helps tonally.
Yeah. It seems like it does. Maybe it's just a mental thing, but I always feel like that's the case.
Yeah. That being said, I really try on my gloss finishes to get them as thin as possible. I've gotten good at knowing when to stop sanding,
On average, how long does it take start to finish to make one of your guitars? If you could just sit down and not have any breaks, if you just made it, how long would it take?
I've never really timed it, but I'm guessing it's around 100 hours.
You need to charge more.
Yeah, I do. Maybe you'll convince me.
Does that factor in time that like you have to sort of wait just for like different stages sort of to settle in at all? Or is that just sort of like, is the 100 hours like the active work side of it?
Well, again, I've never really timed it. It's one thing my shop partner here, Dave, is really wanting to do is he really wants to like figure out exactly how much time it takes to do each step. And he wants to kind of dial in the process of that. But yeah, there's a lot of drying time, and I'm also like building a lot of guitars at once.
How many? Do you do a batch of how many?
It changes, it varies, but I have about 8 going right now.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
So when you're like on average getting one a month done, it's long process to do 8.
Do you so you were saying that you weren't that interested in guitars at the very beginning. Were you playing music at all at that point?
Not at all. No, I
Really?
wasn't really that interested in music.
Wow.
I didn't play music. I was skateboarding and listening to hip hop music and like just being a kid. I started when I was like 19 and really didn't have that much interest in it, which I think was a good thing because I kind of just started completely from scratch and I just learned it all, like as I went. And it took some time to really like hear the difference between like great sounding guitar and like just a mediocre guitar. Like it is hard for me to hear that. I feel like my ear is very dialed into that. I can tell the difference between a really good guitar and a great guitar. It's like really takes kind of time to learn that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Which makes it hard to sell them to kind of the average consumer, because they can't really hear it.
I do think it's an education process. I mean, being in the business for a while now, it's been a real treat and to watch customers start with one particular guitar and then watch as their ear begins to hear things differently and how they progress from this guitar to that one. And it takes time and it's great fun to watch them when they start hearing the really great guitars and can tell the difference.
Totally. I really like to build them differently every time. I like to make different sounding guitars. I use very few like jigs and fixtures, and I lay out my bracing pattern by hand, base it off of the bridge location, and then I draw it out with straight edges and rulers. And I like to be able to like change the X pattern a little bit, and I like to change tone bars, and I like to just experiment with that. And to me, if I was building the same guitar over and over again, it just wouldn't be that interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. So even though you're making the same model, you are tweaking it and adjusting it, and it's evolving all the way through.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that's probably normal for most people, or do you think some luthiers get a formula and stick with that?
I think a lot of people kind of stick to one design, and they have a template that they lay out on their top, and then they, draw out the bracing off of that. It kind of limits their ability to make changes and experiment. And
I think that's great. I mean, for all our friends who have multiples of your guitars, I'm sure they can go along that journey with you.
Totally.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen my guitars evolve quite a bit over the years too.
Mm-hmm.
I've made quite a bit of changes from 10 years ago. And a lot of it's thanks to you. I mean, you guys, we really love your guitar, but we don't quite like the bridge shape, or we don't quite like this. That's great. I learned a lot from critique and from other people. And I really take that feedback and try to make changes. And
what I love about your guitars is the tone and just the feel. And I mean, I realize I've seen you change them throughout, and you've been very kind to listen to us on a couple of things, because we're the people who are interacting with the customers.
Totally.
We know what they're looking for, and
totally.
And and obviously we always defer to you because you're the maker, and that's what's most important. But just to be able to work with you in that way and watch the customers really respond to the guitars.
Yeah.
It's really been a great experience for us. And I'm really honored. I really thank Craig for mentioning you to us. And then, I've never gotten to meet you in person.
I know, this is the kind of the closest we've met.
On Zoom. Some of our customers have come out to see you in Colorado, and I need to make that trip, or you need to make the trip here. One or the other.
I'll make the Nashville some point, and I'll walk in someday and surprise you.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how your guitars change over the next 10 years. What you keep, what you change. I know we were talking one day about the woods, and could you remind me what you do? It's not a full torrefication, but do you do bake it?
Oh, and then the tops, you mean?
Yeah, the tops.
Well, I don't do that myself. I buy most of my top wood from John Griffin from Old Standard.
Yeah.
Tonewoods, I think it's what their website is called.
Yeah.
And they do a process that's similar to torrefication, but they bake it at a really low temperature. It's only like 100 degrees or 120 at the most. And it doesn't change the color, but then it's also in a vacuum. So it kind of sucks a lot of the resins and the moisture out of the wood, but it doesn't torrefy it completely. And to be honest with you, I don't know if it makes any difference. It's hard to tell. The first one I got from him, the guitar just like sounded so good, amazing, like right off the bat. But then I did a couple other ones, and I couldn't really tell a whole lot of difference.
It's always the sum of the parts,
Oh yeah, totally.
And it's hard to know where the magic
work together.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will try to pick out one or two things that, well, this guitar doesn't sound good because it has a rosewood bridge plate, or this guitar doesn't sound good because it has a popsicle brace or something like that. And to me, I try to think of the guitar as just one thing, and everything has to like work together, or if it works against each other, then it's going to sacrifice sound and tone.
And you're able to tell as you're building the guitar where you're going to need to adjust this or that, this angle or this brace, or I mean, as you're going along and it's coming together, you're able to see how to make
I mean, I try to, and also that's another reason why I like to make adjustments to bracing and stuff, because it's all about, to me, for the top, it's about the stiffness If I'm using a top that's not quite as stiff, then I'll close in the X brace a little bit,
Right.
and I'll make adjustments there. But really, I think it has to do with the relationship between the top and the back. I think the back is very important to the guitar, and it can either work against the top and act as a damper, or it can act as a reflector. And so I think getting those two things dialed in right is really key.
Yeah.
So when you're sort of making those micro adjustments, are you thinking in terms of just sort of what is going to be best for that particular guitar to your ear, or do you try to adjust based on maybe what a customer says that they're looking for? Do you factor that kind of feedback in much?
It's a combination of all that. If I'm building a guitar for a particular customer and they're like, "Oh, I really want, a certain sound here or there," then I'll have that in mind the whole entire process, and I'll try to make adjustments there. It's all kind of a guessing game, really. I mean, it's one of the cool things about building guitars is pretty mysterious, like how they sound, and why they sound good and why they sound bad. It's really hard to explain. It's hard to talk about and hard to discuss. It's if I had the secret, then everybody would be making them the same way, I think.
I mean, I know that we have one luthier who says, the guitar's so new it doesn't know it's a guitar yet. And then I've also experienced buying a guitar for myself that I wasn't sure about right off the bat, and a good friend of mine said, just put it in the case and stick it under the bed for a year and go back to it.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? He was exactly right. And it took a couple of years to kind of become, I have it now 27 years I've had it. And for the first couple of years, I wasn't very sure about it. And that guitar, just all the molecules rearrange themselves just the right way. And it's absolutely amazing. But had I not done what he said and just kind of let it be for a bit. So it's hard for me to know sometimes if a guitar is bad or if it's just not where it's going to be.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, it's pretty cool to like string up a guitar for the first time, and it really changes a whole lot within the first couple hours, really.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with the strings slowly pulling the top into like a certain shape, or the shape that it wants to be in.
Yeah.
And it takes a little time for that. Right off the bat, sometimes they sound really weird, and usually those are the best ones, the ones that sound weird as soon as you play them. You give a little time, 24 hours or something, and it really starts opening up. The basses start coming. That's a pretty cool process.
Yeah.
Something the customer doesn't quite experience fully.
Yeah, because you've got it for that period of time. I always feel that if I pick up a guitar, and I mean, one thing I know is that a guitar that I cannot make sound very good sounds amazing in the next person's hand. And then it can change. And so it's always the person playing it.
Totally.
But for me personally, if I pick up a guitar and I'm not sure there's enough low end, a new guitar, and I love the trebles, I'm willing to stick with that guitar because I think the low end will come in. But I've always been, if I don't like the trebles right off the bat, I should walk away from that one. I don't know if you feel that way, but for me, that's kind of that's worked for me.
Yeah, I think trebles are the most important part of it. And it's interesting to hear all the different sounding instruments and hear them change over time. I think it's a cool part of guitar building. And I always get worried, like if they sound really good right off the bat, because then I feel like they're just going to get worse at that point.
I hear you. I'm always that way with a haircut. If it looks great on day one, I know it's
going
to be bad in a week. If it looks bad, I'm like, it'll settle in.
Right.
That's right.
Do the same thing.
Kind of funny. So we were talking the other day about your list of guitar models, and I know that you have been very accommodating to us and made some guitars that were somewhat one-offs for us, but you're kind of settling into.
Yeah, I have to. I mean, I think it's just a little too much work to make every model known to man, and I think I have a good group of body styles that should satisfy most people. 12 fret triple O, 12 fret double O, and then I also do a size 2, which is kind of cool. It's really smaller than a single O, and I do a dreadnought and OM, and we're going to be doing LOOs soon.
That's what I'm waiting for. I mean, I love all your models. I mean, my friend Rick has one of your size 2s, and he also has one of your early 00s, like your LOOs, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I made that guitar in my old forms
Yeah.
and my old bending mold. And my shop partner, Dave, he's been kind of redesigning all my templates and molds and stuff like that. And so we're just kind of trying to pick these certain models to like really dial in, and it's really helping me improve the accuracy of every aspect of it. So, you know, it's possible for me to like go and use my old, I mean, I could bend the wood by hand if I wanted to, but I think it's just sacrifice some workmanship there.
I'm excited about the LOO.
Yeah, that's the Kim dream guitar right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you one of these days. Find you some good maple.
Yeah,
Maple.
one. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. How'd you know? I have the world's largest collection of LOOs.
Oh, really? Cool.
Shaped guitars, not necessarily LOOs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, got a few. I could line them up, but I don't have one of yours, and that's my dream
Yeah, you
guitar.
need one.
I think you're converting me, Kim. I feel like every time I see myself playing a 00, I'm like, that looks right. And like, I'm getting more into them.
Nice shape, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great shape. I have to say, I'm really, I love your 14 fret Martin style 00.
Yeah.
But I'm still, my heart belongs to the LOO shape.
Yeah.
It's just what
I've always been kind of partial to the Martin body styles. I think whenever I make a Gibson, I feel like I need to brace it like a Gibson, or, you know, like it kind of feels bad for me to like do my bracing style on a Gibson body style.
Did you do your bracing style on Rick's, or did you do more of a
yeah.
Gibson? Okay. Well, it's
Yeah.
fabulous. I mean, you shouldn't feel bad about that at all. It's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But it seems kind of almost sacrilegious. Like,
Yeah, I hear you.
I feel like I should either be a Martin guy or a Gibson guy, you know?
Yeah. Mix them up.
Mix them up, yeah.
So are you going to do more of a Gibson style bracing on the LOO when you kind of sort of not standardize that model, but
Probably not. I mean, I kind of stick to my bracing.
Okay.
I think I have a good design, and I really like the sound that I'm getting. I feel like if I make too many changes there, you know, I don't necessarily want it to sound like a Gibson. So
Yeah.
I want it to sound like my guitar.
Fair enough. I don't know how many of your guitars I should have added it up, but there's quite a few in there, I think, that
Yeah,
we've been able to be a part of.
been a lot.
And happy to know that one of our customers that bought one of your guitars, he's able to sell a couple of them for you each year.
Oh, you're talking about Chris?
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, so throw in a plug there for Chris. But I just think your work is spectacular. And
Oh, thank you.
it's just been a real honor to just watch what you've done over these years, you know, get to kind of grow with you and watch it happen. We rarely get used John Baxendale in the
I
shop.
don't see him too often.
I have one headed our way now.
Oh, yeah?
I think it's a beeswing mahogany that's coming to us, and I'll tell you about it when we get it because I don't have it yet. But
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good one. I don't know. Figured mahogany is a little tricky. Straight grain mahogany sounds the best, you know.
how do you describe the tone of figured mahogany? How would you describe it?
I don't know. It just seems it's usually a little dead sounding. That might not be your experience, and I haven't used a lot of it. You know, I built a couple like figured mahogany guitars, and I just feel like it's kind of fighting to get the tone out of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Do you feel like are you able to kind of compensate more for it, or is it just sort of like?
Well, I haven't had enough experience with it, really.
Yeah.
I tend to just like the straight grain mahogany. I think it's easier to bend. It's easier to work with. You can't go wrong with it. You know, and as soon as you start using the figured stuff, it's just, I don't know, there's something about it I don't quite like. But
Well, that's just more arguments in favor of straight grain being the best.
totally. Yeah. Can't go wrong with mahogany, really. I mean, I think it's very predictable, and so lightweight, and I just love the sound of mahogany.
Me too. Mahogany and maple are my favorites, but I do like Madagascar.
Mhm.
I mean, I like them all. I just find myself drawn to mahogany and maple.
Rosewood's a little more inconsistent. Like not all Brazilian rosewood is created equal.
Mhm.
There's Brazilian rosewood I've seen that just like so dead sounding, and I'd rather use a straight grain set of Indian rosewood
Mhm.
for some of these sets, and people are trying to get top dollar for them too. And that's,
Do you try to persuade customers away from Brazilian rosewood where you can? Because
I try to sometimes, yeah, but a lot of people are pretty adamant about it, and at the end of the day, I need to make a living. So
Yeah, that's got to be tough sometimes, And I'll admit, when I ordered my Brazilian rosewood guitar, I just thought that's going to be it for me.
Yeah.
I've got to have one. And that's the guitar that I struggled with for 2 years, that I have
okay.
kept 27 years, and it has grown into what it's wonderful. But I would have been happy all the way through with mahogany and maple. But I just thought I had to have the Brazilian. And, I understand where the customer is coming from. And when you hear a really good herringbone, it's hard to argue with that. But, it's
Yeah.
just, I do love the sound of a great, I just helped a customer with a 1934 0028 that I would be most happy to take home. But so I'm not trying to say I don't like Brazilian, but I can't afford that Brazilian, and
Yeah,
some of the newer stuff, I just as soon have maple or mahogany from
Yeah.
my own ears. That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah,
Not against Brazilian. It's just, I can't quite afford that Brazilian,
Mm.
yeah, they're going up in value.
Where are you, having skipped number 100 for a bit? Where are you in your lineup of, what number are you on?
I'm working on 105, and I'm up to, I think, 110 maybe. But yeah, I really want to like make 100 special. I think I'm going to do a 45 style, and I don't know if it's going to be a dreadnought or an OM possibly. It's just depending on the wood. I'm trying to find a piece of wood. As soon as I can afford it, I'm going to buy a set of wood for it. And if it's big enough, I'll do a dreadnought.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's your preferred soundboard?
I kind of stick to like my main source of Adirondack spruce.
Mhm.
And that's just because they cut it really well, and it's really super stiff, and I just know what I'm getting when I order wood from them. I've ordered other Adirondack tops from other sources, and I just never been fully satisfied with how they're cut, and
Mhm.
so I kind of stick to that wood just because I have a reliable source for it.
Do you get requests for other top woods very often, or do most people
Not
want?
very often, no. I think people tend to listen to my advice on it, and they'll come to me and say, and they want a certain thing, and I'll be like, well, I can find that, but I really like these tops here, and usually people are happy with it. So
Yeah, one thing that I do wish for customers is, and I think most of our customers do feel this way, it's best to let the luthier do what he does best.
Mhm.
yeah, it's usually definitely easier for me when they don't have too many ideas in the fire, and it tends to, the guitar gets done quicker too, because I can just kind of freely work on it and not worry about every little step having to like communicate with the customer about, and they typically come out better.
That makes sense. I know it's always frustrating to me to have, only because I care about what the customer is getting, but a customer will come in and play something, love it, love the combination, and then order something totally different, and then be unhappy that it doesn't sound like what they played. And I'm like, well, if we go in this direction. But I think most of the customers that we work with, I have to say, I'm working with a gentleman right now that he totally gets it and wants the luthier to feel good about what he's making. He wants to rely on the luthier's knowledge and let him make something wonderful.
Most customers I've dealt with are just like that. They kind of want me to do my thing, and they're usually happier in the long run.
So you kind of build in a very classic style, very Martin style. Do you ever see yourself venturing into the more modern, maybe appointments or build techniques or anything like that, band frets, et cetera?
I think that time has passed, really. I think I'd rather just continue to get better at making what I make.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it would be just too hard for me to kind of break into that market. I really respect a lot of these, contemporary makers that are doing some really cool stuff. Just from where I come from, I was always very intrigued by the old, classic traditional guitars. And one of the things that really made me turn a corner when I was first starting out was I had a book about Larson Brothers guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And in the back of the book had a CD with Mario Anderson playing all these Larson Brother guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And I just fell in love with the way they sounded. And I would just look at the book and just be wonder how they made this, and try to visualize what their hands were doing when they carved the neck and whatnot. And
yeah.
So I just has always been kind of passionate about that. I don't know. I just don't think I could make that switch, really. Yeah.
No, that's totally fair. I mean, there's obviously we love your guitars as they are, and there's so much to continue to explore within the realm of vintage inspired or whatever you want to call it. Cause I mean, you just can't go wrong. So
I don't think I think there's more people making the contemporary style guitar these days, seems like. And I think I found a little niche where I'm kind of in a smaller group of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can make a guitar just as good as a pre-war Martin, then it's gonna sell. And if you remember, Kim, I was kind of when I first started building guitars for you, I would kind of do some different things and that were kind of outside the box.
Yes.
And I think for the most part, people didn't really like it too much.
I think stylistic changes and some of the things that you did, they were very interesting. But I think given the fact that your work is so traditionally inspired that it's hard for us as customers sometimes to see that vision. Or I mean, I'm with you about the Larson guitars. I mean, you look at those, you play those late 1800s Martins, and you wonder how they did so much by hand so long ago, and they're so lightly built, and you wonder why they don't just disintegrate, but they don't, and they just have this explosive, powerful kind of tone even in these small bodies. And they were so far ahead of their time, but not really. They were just doing what they did, and it's so exceptional. We're working backwards to do some of that still today.
Yeah.
I'm glad for one that you've chosen to go that direction, because I just think you're one of the best and will continue to be one of the best. I
appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you. So
well, and you're so young, and there's so much time.
Yeah, I'm not as young as I used to be, though. I just turned 40, and
happy birthday.
No, thank you.
Lindsay, I was telling John that I realized I don't go on Facebook much, but I kind of happened onto Facebook at the end of the year and realized that two of my favorite Luthiers have the same birthday.
Oh yeah, who
J.C. and Max.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. And one builds a contemporary 00 and one builds a traditional, and I'm fond of both. So.
What kind of music do you listen to the most often for your, or do you also listen to?
I do play. I mean, I say this all the time and people don't get it, but technically I'm a good guitar player. Musically, I'm not very good at all. When someone sees me play, they would think that I was a good guitar player. And what I'm good at is really making the guitar sound good. I'm good at really bringing out the full potential of the tone of any instrument, really.
Mhm.
But as soon as I start playing with someone else, I just fall apart.
Yeah, it's kind of two different things
Yeah,
to
it
be able
is.
to really there are some great players that we've even had in, but they don't really know how to draw the tone out of individual instruments the same way. They have their style and their style
Yeah,
might be amazing. So it
yeah,
is kind of two different things.
yeah, totally. Um, as far as what I listen to a lot of different things. I listen to a lot of Americana and singer-songwriter type stuff, and bluegrass, and getting more into jazz, and still listen to hip hop. And biggest inspirations when I started making them was Norman Blake. I just love Norman Blake. I just love his guitar playing and music,
Yeah.
and Tony Rice. And so yeah, and sometimes we put on some electronic music, like here in the shop, and we just work to that. So it's just a mix of everything.
It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Do you have any albums or anything that you've discovered recently that you're really digging on?
I'm listening to this new band called Skin Shape. Have you heard of them?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they're really good. It's really kind of melodic and cool, and also Bahamas. You heard of Bahamas?
Mm-mm.
You should check them out. They're really great. What about you?
Well, my top album for 2022 was Brian Raiha's album called Timber. He's a kind of fingerstyle guitarist. He does some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Have you listened to Madison Cunningham, John?
No.
Oh,
She's my new favorite.
she's so
Yeah.
good.
I mean, she's an incredible lyricist. She's a great singer, and she's a fantastic guitar player.
Yeah.
So my husband took me to a birthday concert to see the Punch Brothers at the Ryman a few years ago. I think it was 2018, maybe 19. And she fronted the Punch Brothers, and she stood there in a dress with a telly. And I've been hooked ever since. I mean, I was just immediately drawn into her style, and she's brilliant, I think. So you might check her out. Cunningham.
What's your last name?
Cunningham.
I'll check her out.
Yeah. Well, do you have any other questions, Kim?
I don't think so. It's great to catch up, to get to see your face.
Absolutely. We got to meet in person sometime.
Yeah, let's do it. Maybe when I get my LOO, I'll come fetch it.
Yeah, I'll come deliver it to you.
Okay, either way.
Yeah.
Meet halfway.
Yeah, be fun.
Yeah, we can meet in Kansas somewhere or something.
Well, I mean, I think I'm satisfied, unless you want, if there's anything else you wanted to particularly plug or whatever, but I know you're not much for the self-promotion, so no, I don't need to put you on the spot.
Really. I appreciate you guys talking to me and listening to me.
Great fun.
Hopefully I can get you guys a lot more guitars.
They come at the speed they come, and no pressure, just makes them all the more special when they do come.
Yeah, really appreciate you. Love your work.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Talking Guitar. Right now, we are sadly low on J.C. Baxendale's in the shop, as Kim is keeping him very busy with custom orders. But if you are a lefty looking for that be-all, end-all Brazilian dread, we have got the guitar for you in the form of a stunning D42 with an Adirondack spruce top. And if you're interested in ordering a custom model through us, Kim would love to help you. Links to John's site, the Lefty D42, and Kim's contact info will all be linked below in the show notes. More Luthier chats are coming up soon with Jeff Jewett, Frank Sly of Sylvan Guitars, Simon Haycraft of Preston Thompson, and more, so be sure to check back next week for the latest episode.